Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for having me here today. Again, my name, Malik Mangier. I work at the Product Advocate for Atlassian. So what is a product advocate? It's not like I'm a lawyer putting products on trials. It's that on a daily basis, I'm going to help new Atlassian users to quickly understand our tools by answering their specific questions about the different features and functionalities of our solutions. And so I came here today to share with you some of the elements of culture, processes, and tools that are going to make you successful with DevOps and Atlassian behind the safety of your firewall. So this is going to be the agenda for today. First, we'll have a look at the current state of software. We'll address some of the bigger challenges that the software industry is facing today and where DevOps fits in. Oh, okay. Then we'll move on to the steps to DevOps. We'll spend some time understanding the need for a culture shift and finding the right tools with Atlassian. And then I'll go through a practical example illustrating how a mid-sized enterprise company can adopt the Atlassian toolset and DevOps behind the firewall. So let's begin with the current state of software today and some of the challenges that the industry is facing. So 6 years ago, you may be familiar with this, in the Wall Street Journal, a famous investor, Mark Andreessen, stated that software is eating the world. And that statement became quite an iconic statement on how software was disrupting every industry at the time. And today, the idea that every company is a software company is a bit of a cliche, because no matter which industry you're in, you're expected to be reinventing your business if you don't want to be the next local taxi company or hotel chain caught completely off guard with your equivalent of Uber or Airbnb. In fact, what's happening is that today, software is programming the world, according to Andreessen again. We're all becoming increasingly more reliant on software and services for everything, including for things in markets where it didn't make sense before, like physical goods, for example. So, in the last 10 years, we've seen Agile and Git adoption skyrocket, and for teams of all sizes. Now, Agile and Git is the new normal. Atlassian made a survey last year, over 20,000 software development teams, and we found out that almost 80% of them is using Agile. And when it comes to Git, it's also now about 80% adoption rate across development teams. Again, as you can see from the charts, this pattern is not just for the smaller teams, but also for the larger enterprise teams. And so, while Agile and Git are great, and they have been around for a while now in terms of the software industry, we should ask ourselves, though, what lies ahead for software development, and how can we improve things? So, who has moved to Agile or Git or both yet? Okay. Well, if you're using Agile or Git, and if you're still in one of these situations, if your incident response times are often exceeding SLAs, if your infrastructure often has unexpected incidents, if there's friction between the development and operation teams, and if your releases are being delayed, if you can answer yes to any of these questions, then you realize that while Agile and Git are great, they actually don't prevent silos from still happening. Because traditional development teams and operation teams, they do tend to work in silos. Those teams, they don't talk much to each other until it's time to release the software into production. And so, for example, working with Agile and Git is not going to prevent somebody from operation from being woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning to work on an incident they have no context about. So, while Agile and Git are great for a DevOps culture, it's going to take more to build a culture that allows for cross-functional teams to maximize efficiency, collaborate, and innovate together. And the only way to break down the silos, open the lines of communications, and make further gains on speed and quality is going to be through a different way of working. So we're not just talking about tools here, we're also talking about best practices and a culture shift to experiment and share information between teams. And this is going to be the catalyst for the movement that we call DevOps. So you may have heard many different definitions for DevOps, and this is where Atlassian stands. DevOps is a culture where dev and ops collaborate to build a faster, more reliable release pipeline. We also believe that DevOps is supported by three main principles. First, there is the idea of flow, the workflow. You want to make the work visible across group. You want to make the work visible across development teams and operation teams. You want to reduce the work in progress. You want to resist the urge to blindly throw work over the fence to people who have no context about it. You need to work as a system, not a silo. Then there's the idea that you want to amplify the feedback. You want fast feedback. You want to catch the failures very early before they make it downstream to production. You want to deliver quality by starting at the root. And then there's the idea of continuous experimentation. You want to create a culture of learning. You want to create a culture where taking risks and learning from your mistakes is seen as a step forward. And it's going to take a team to get there. DevOps is not one person's job, it's everybody's job. So if you compare this to a traditional enterprise model where dev and ops sit on the opposite side of the fence, this is going to be a complete culture shift. You're going to have to make a decision to be more transparent, understanding, and cooperative. So what we can see here is there's a strong correlation between teams practicing DevOps and teams delivering values. The teams practicing DevOps, they're going to spend more time on R&D, on research and development, and they're going to spend less time on unplanned work or redoing work. Those teams, you can see, they're going to have faster recoveries from failures. They're going to deploy better quality code. They're going to have a shorter lead times, and they're going to deploy more often to production. So all those numbers and complementary information can be found in the report, which is called the State of DevOps report. And this is actually a fantastic piece of research made over more than 20,000 software development teams, and with the input of some high-profile IT professionals, people like Gene Kim or Jess Humble, who are behind the DevOps movement. So what this all comes down to is some kind of DevOps value chain. We do this because we want faster time to market. We do this because we want to have faster feedback. At the same time, we want to maintain a high quality of releases. And of course, we also want happier teams and happier customers. And this will lead to the competitive advantage that will help your organization move a little bit faster than the competition. So now let's dig in a little deeper in the steps that you can take to transition to DevOps. So your journey is going to start with a culture of collaboration. Culture is a core ingredient for successful teams and for successful implementation of DevOps. Collaboration is going to be the key here. After that, the practices follow. So a motivated team is going to need good practices in place to allow collaboration to thrive. And finally, having the right tools at your disposals are going to help you speed up releases by automating tasks and defining set processes. So let's have a closer look at each one of these steps, starting with the culture. So culture is again the foundation on which every successful team is built. You need to ask yourself, currently, does your culture foster experimentation and encourage transparency? Do members of your team or organizations, do they feel comfortable approaching one another with problems? Do incidents happening, do they lead to finger pointings instead of learning? Well, building a culture for DevOps is going to be the first steps. You want to build a sense of shared responsibility where everyone is going to share the wins and failures. You want to be open, transparent, and have effective way of communicating. You want to build empathy and understanding across teams by cross-pollination. For example, it can be very simple as having an operation engineer sitting next to a developer, or having a developer who is working on support on rotation. Those are the kind of things that we do at Atlassian. And so now, how would you get started with that culture shift? One small but very impactful way to initiate that culture change is to run workshops to identify areas you can improve amongst your teams, amongst your devs and ops. So we do this often at Atlassian as well, and we do this so much that we've published this in a book, the Atlassian Team Playbook. And just recently, we've introduced a guide on how to use this playbook specifically for DevOps. So this DevOps guide promotes the use of the team health monitors to identify areas for improvement. For example, making sure that responsibilities are evenly balanced across team members, or making sure that all team members have a shared understanding of the current projects. And once you've identified areas for improvement, you can move on to the recommended plays for this area. For example, if you've identified that your team always run into the same problems during the release or during the incidents, then it's time to implement some kind of post-mortem analysis or a kind of retrospective. So running the health monitors and the plays can help your team move toward a culture that is ready for DevOps. And so if you're using Confluence, Confluence now includes those range of plays bundled as blueprints. So all those templates on the Playbook website, they give you everything you need. But if you're going to use Confluence, then it's even easier because everything is there already as templates. And all those templates, they also come available in all the languages that come with Confluence by default. So let's move on to the next essential step to transition to DevOps, which is the practices. So culture is huge, but so are the practices that you're going to put into place. Agile, distributed version control, continuous integration and continuous delivery, those are going to be the main requirements to a DevOps environment. And these things, they won't happen one after the other one, by the way. It's a concurrent effort. These things, they happen at the same time. Any changes that you will make will reduce the process friction and help in changing how your dev and operation team work together. So let's take a closer look at how Atlassian can help you for each one of those practices. Starting with Agile. So Agile is the key precursor to succeeding with DevOps. So if your planning and development process can't work in short iterations, then there's nothing that you have to deploy or to operate on short cycles. So if you haven't started with Agile yet, or if the health monitor suggests that improvements can be made, then this is a good place to start. We've published information on our Agile macro site, and you can go and check it out. About DVCS, you can still move to DevOps if you're not using DVCS, but it's going to be a lot harder because DVCS is all about quick iterations with change managed in isolation through short-lived branches and easy merging. And those are all the things that you're going to need for a lean DevOps environment. There too, we can provide guidance. We also have a microsite dedicated to Git. This microsite already helped more than 1 million people, and so definitely worth having a look if you're getting into Git. And lastly, we can talk about continuous delivery. So in DevOps, automation and deployment is the point of DevOps. You want to deploy fast. And so the structure for this deployment is going to be a sound continuous integration pipeline. And so there too, we have put information for you. We have a microsite which is dedicated to continuous delivery, where we share our experience in this area. And finally, after bringing all these practices together, having dev and ops work more closely is going to become a more manageable undertaking. And to complement these 3 other websites that I talked about, we're now providing material on our DevOps microsite to help you transform your teams. Okay, so that was a lot of theory, but Agile, Git, continuous integration, continuous delivery, and the team playbook is going to take you only to one point. And what are you supposed to do next to make that transition to DevOps even easier? This is when you're going to want to use the right tools. And so looking specifically at the Atlassian toolset, you might have seen this diagram before. This is the infinity loops for DevOps that is aligned with the Atlassian tools. At Atlassian, we see DevOps as a complete software development lifecycle where the Atlassian tools fits in. From planning with Confluence and Jira Software, to building with Bitbucket and Jira Software, to continuous integration with Bamboo, and continuous deployment with Jira Software and Bamboo, with operation with Jira Service Desk, Confluence and Status Page, and continuous feedback with Jira Service Desk, back to the planning, and all this all the time with constant real-time communication with HipChat. So I'm going to walk you through this toolset with a practical example. And I'll use our on-premises toolset to illustrate here. So imagine a fictional DevOps team working on the Teams in Space project. So just for context, this project is about building a web application that will help your customers book their space travel online. So let's go through their DevOps story with the Atlassian toolset. First, Sally, the software developer lead, is going to add tasks and bug fixes to the backlog. And that looks like something like this in Jira. If you're using Jira, you may be familiar with this. Then the development team starts to work on the next sprint in Jira. They start to work on the tool, on the fix, on the feature. And Jennifer, Sally's colleague, she begins to work on the bug fix. So the source code that she works on is stored in a Git repository. And this Git repository is managed by Bitbucket. Bitbucket, which is Atlassian's solution for the Git repository management. So using the integration between Jira and Bitbucket, Jennifer is going to create a development branch directly from the Jira issue. And at Atlassian, and in this example, we are going to use the feature branching workflow for even the smallest item of work. So once the changes are made, we run builds on those isolated branches before merging them back into the master branch. So here, this is going to take you then to Bitbucket, where the code is being checked in. And when the code checked in is ready for review, Jennifer is going to create a pull request. A pull request is basically a request to pull the changes from your development branch into your master branch. And this is going to be the perfect opportunity to review the code and collaborate as a team. So the pull requests, they are very, very important into your workflow. And they should be used as part of the workflow because this is when the collaboration happens. And collaboration, as we've seen, is a huge piece of DevOps. So pull requests will get your team members talking. They will get your team member share knowledge and responsibility on the code changes. In Bitbucket Server, there is also now repository shortcuts available. So those shortcuts, they're going to let you add links to your Jira Agile board, to your HipChat rooms, to your Confluence pages, basically anything that is related to the project you're working on. And this is going to help new developers to figure out quickly where things are. And this is going to help the more senior developers to find information that should be available at their fingertip. In Bitbucket Server, there is now also iterative reviews for the pull request. Iterative reviews, they're going to help your developers to keep track of changes in the pull request as they happen over time. Here, you can see that a user has marked a pull request as needing work, and the author has then gone and added 2 commits. Then, when the reviewer returns, they can just see these 2 commits only that they have made since they last reviewed the pull request, instead of having to scroll through the entire diff all over again. And so this is really going to help the team focus on making sure that their feedback both has been reviewed and that they haven't missed anything as well. So now let's jump over to Bamboo, our continuous integration and continuous delivery tool. So Bamboo is great for automation in general. And there are some new functionalities in Bamboo that I'd like to call out. One in particular is the pull request base build. So in the past, we've had planned branches, which are awesome for building all the branches in your Git repository. But sometimes you don't want to run that many builds because your computer resources are precious. And so maybe you gave up and you decided not to run planned branches automatically at all as a result. So with this pull request base build, you can now trigger a build in Bamboo when the pull request is created in Bitbucket. And the added benefit of this is that we are going to also merge your pull request on the build machine and run the test over there, so that you can be sure that when the merge happens, it's going to be clean and you're not going to have build failing in your master branch. By the way, we've been working even more on Bamboo lately, and now Bamboo also has configuration as code available. So until recently, the graphical user interface in Bamboo was the only way to create Bamboo plans for your build, test, and deployment issues. So you needed to use the graphical user interface to update those plans over time, and there was no version history to roll back to a previous version. But now you can also write your plans as code, which means you can also version track them. And you can also update your plans directly from your source code editor. So with development complete, all updates are available inside of Jira Software. And you're going to get complete visibility. You're going to be able to see the branches, the commits, the pull requests, the builds, all the information is in Jira. And this visibility is going to be very, very useful at release time, because the release manager now can see the status of everything in Jira because of the software release hub. With the release hub, he can see which issues are in the release and the development status for those issues. And when things are marked as done, the release manager can deploy from Jira or directly from Bamboo. And here you go. The release is now live into production. With the release live into production, what now if an incident occurs? Imagine that an incident comes in. It's very unlikely, but imagine that there is an incident. If you're using HipChat for your team's communication, you can also integrate system monitoring with HipChat. Here, for example, the monitoring tool has notified the team in HipChat. So the monitoring tool has notified the team in HipChat that there is an issue in production. Sam, the operation engineer, looks into the HipChat room and can read that something is wrong with the application cluster supporting the Teams in Space website. So Sam, the operation engineer, understands that pretty quickly that it's going to take some time to fix that issue. And so he's going to create a Jira Service Desk ticket to track the progress on the problem. Once the ticket is created, Jira Service Desk in turn is going to ping the HipChat room and is going to ping the developers into HipChat. And so the developer, like Sally, for instance, is going to pick up that ticket to get more context about what's happening. So now the ops teams and the dev teams, they are working together to find the root cause of the incident and identify a fix. First, the operation team updates status page to publicly inform all the users that the Teams in Space website has a performance problem. And then they're going to search through their Confluence knowledge base for a fix. And here, in this example, the team finds in Confluence that the short-term fix is to add an extra node to the cluster. So Sam is going to bring an extra node into the cluster as a quick fix. But for a more permanent fix that will address the actual root cause of the problem that happened, this is going to go into the backlog for the developers to look at into the next sprint. So when the issue is resolved and ready to go into the backlog, the team now runs a retrospective on the incident that happens. It's an incident postmortem. Everyone in the incident is involved, the operation teams and the development teams. They get together and they can put a postmortem into Confluence. So they can take a snapshot of the HipChat room history, for example, and put this in as a trail audit of what happened and think about what they can do better next time for this kind of situation. So we just talked about the infinity loop and how the Atlassian tools fits in. But there's more to it because Atlassian does a lot, but it covers about 70% of the software lifecycle development. There's more into it that we didn't talk about, like automation, containerization, orchestration, and so on. And this is when you're going to need integrations to fill in the gaps. So no matter what you're looking at, it's very likely that there are integrations to complement the Atlassian toolset. In the Atlassian marketplace, you can find those integration to your favorite tools and other add-ons as well. For example, if you're into testing and QA, we have integration with RunnerX for test automation. You can pass RunnerX results in Bamboo and link test runs and information to Jira issues. There's the Adaptivist Test Manager. You can integrate with Jira for test management. There's the Neoload from Neotis that integrates with Bamboo for performance testing. So you can run an automated performance test on your deployment and on your new build. So there's more integration. There's integration with code quality and compliance tools. There's integration with continuous deployment tools, and integration with application monitoring, things like Dynatrace, for example, that can be used to automatically link Jira ticket with Dynatrace reports. And there's, of course, third parties who can help as well. So those are our local Atlassian partners, partners like CTG, for instance. So this is where the partners can help. CTG can help you to customize. They can help you to give you some hands-on assistance. They can help you with training, best practices. They have a lot of experience with different accounts, and they can bring it together for you. So to close it, remember that our DevOps resources is there to help you figure it out, where you're at, and where you can improve your team's culture, processes and tools toward a faster delivery time, happier devs, high quality of software, and this competitive advantage that you're striving for. Thank you.